Guys, I've been inside of the manosphere, red pill space for around about eight years, possibly a little bit longer. I've seen it change. I've seen it mold and develop. I've been there with it going mainstream, the popularity of Tate, and so on. At this point, I've spoken to, helped, coached hundreds of young men from around the world. They message me weekly, telling me how my content's helped them and everything else. I believe I'm one of the most balanced guys in this space. Now, I have a small channel. In the grand scheme of things, it's a small channel. But it's there, right? We're just under 10K currently. And I'm in this space and I've been making content and people have reached out to me and so forth. I believe I'm one of the more balanced people in the space. I've called out manosphere content, red pill influencers, the biggest names and some of the ideas and everything else. I also, being myself, I'm married. I've been with my missus for 13 and a half years. We have 2 kids. I had a phase before I met her. I had a bit of a player, Lothario phase for a couple of years, but I also went through a phase of practically my whole teenage years was like an incel phase, right? All of my friends, everybody was getting girlfriends, everyone was getting laid, and I wasn't getting any attention. I was being rejected, I was being embarrassed by girls, so I understand what that feels like, and I feel like I have a kind of unique viewpoint on this and lived experience, multiple different lived experiences. And so I wanted to answer the question, being inside, being a creator, talking to these guys, experiencing this stuff, is the manosphere a dangerous place for young men? Because it's sort of gone mainstream again, this conversation with the adolescence show, right? And it's blown up, and I've done a couple of videos on it, and I got a lot of pushback from women and the normies, and that was totally expected in one of the videos. And then I laid out the real agenda behind the show. I don't want to touch on that show now, but I want to touch on, is it a dangerous place? Is the manosphere a dangerous place? Because that's what this show is implying, that it's in radicalizing young men to become more violent and misogynistic towards women. Now, I'm probably gonna annoy almost everybody here. If you're inside and you're a fan of red pill content and manosphere, there's going to be points where you're going to want to switch off. I recommend you continue watching and you see the bigger picture and what I'm trying to lay out here. And the same goes for if you're a woman or a feminist or whatever. There's going to be times where you're just going to be like, right, turn off whatever. I suggest you continue watching and trying to look at this bigger picture that I tried to lay out. Is it a dangerous place for young men? Yes and no. And we'll get to that. So, like I said, even though I say I consider myself male, self-improvement, manosphere, content creator, I call myself a red pill guy. I've taken that red pill. I've done my fair share of calling out some of this stuff. There is a lot of garbage in the manosphere. A lot of garbage. And I would go as far to say, for young, impressionable boys, teenage boys, young men, the biggest content creators, the biggest channels, the biggest messages being pushed, and being pushed is a very key point, I would say is not good for young men. Okay, I would say it's not good for them. To call it dangerous, do I think men are being radicalized to be violent against women? No, I haven't seen any messages of anyone ever pushing violence against women. No, I don't see that. There's no message around that. Now, most of red pill content is sort of content that is what we call the red pill rage. It orientates itself around the red pill rage. It's sort of a phase. Most people that come to the red pill and the manosphere are guys that have been hurt by women, because they're just constantly rejected and shamed by women, right? Incel types, or they've been cheated on, you know, and been played and messed around. So they come into the red pill stage, they first find it, and it's the red pill rage phase, right? They're raging, they hate women, they hate what women have done to them, and they just want to take out. And then most of the content that is being pushed is based around that red pill rage phase. Because it gets the most clicks, it gets the most views, it gets the most comments, it gets the most, and everything else. For guys, and like I said, it's a phase. For most guys, they're going to get out of that phase. And they're going to realize it was a phase, I got through it, I don't hate women, and now the more they understand women, the less they hate women, right? And they just sort of accept it for what it is, and then they can adapt and maneuver in the way they choose. And guys who get past that phase and get what they want out of the red pill, they just kind of they get out of it and they leave it, and it is what it is, and they got the value. But that type of content is what is the most popular. It's what's being pushed, and the degenerate side. And I've spoken about this. I've mentioned I am 200 definitely now with adolescence. I'm 200% sure the most popular creators in this space, Tate's, Fresh and Fit, you know, so many of these degenerate red pillars that push, right, degeneracy and garbage and some abhorrent views on women. I believe they're being pushed on purpose, right? I believe they're being pushed on purpose by powers that be. Now, this is an opinion. Because what does it promote? It promotes the breakdown of the nuclear family and degeneracy and yada yada, but also, right, so that it can push guys to the fringe, it can push them to the extreme, so then the manosphere in general can be clamped down on and so on. And I've mentioned that, right? So I think a lot of that stuff has been garbage, but what has been really interesting over the last 12 months, because again, I'm deep in this stuff, I'm there keeping an eye on this, and it's been very good, is that it's been self-regulating itself over the last 12 months or so, I would say. It's actually one of the reasons that I believe that I have the audience that I've had, and I've had a couple of videos do quite well, is because of that self-regulation. A lot of the talk around alpha males and everything, all of this stuff is being called out as embarrassing and cringe. A lot of the just sleep with as many women as you can, and status and value and the focus on materialism and excessive wealth. All this stuff is being sort of self-corrected. It's being called out for what it is. It is a lot of garbage. But this is why it worries me, this whole talk, and you see now that adolescence is going to be shown for free in schools and misogyny lessons are going to be in play. This has been a play, in my opinion. This has been a play so they can clamp down further on masculinity, further on young men, strong, independent, reliant, masculine men, and the talk around women in general and the faults that women have. It's going to be a clamp down on that. I think if you leave the manosphere to leave it alone, it will self-correct in the way it's doing it, and will become more healthy, and it is becoming more healthy. And I worry this clamp down and all these online safety information acts and whatnot, protection acts and everything else. I worry about this because let's be honest here. Men need a place where they can go and complain about women and figure out solutions around women and their dating life and so on, and the problems that women are creating in the dating market and society. Because let me tell you, we can lay a lot of blame at their feet. And I think a lot of the guys in the red pill manosphere understand this. And as soon as you mention fault to the mainstream, to women in general, women's role to play in this, suddenly you're labeled a misogynist and everything else. And this is just ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. And so look, women can go in public anywhere, right? And they can be on mainstream. How many mainstream television shows, movies, talk shows, right? Female talk shows where women can just come out and say, oh, men are useless. And the audience will laugh, ha ha ha, and they'll applaud, and woo, and all this. Women can go anywhere they want, on any platform, anywhere, to anyone, and they can complain about how useless men are, how rubbish men are, what a pain men are, how dangerous men are, yada, 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 and all the blame and the expectations and everything else. They can do that out in the open. Men can't do that. Men can't do that. Men can't, there's no real mainstream platform where men can go out and do that. So this is where the manosphere comes in, and where it's created, in the red pill and everything else, because a hell of a lot of men have seen, right? This is the pattern recognition. They've seen the common behaviors, and they come together and they go, oh yeah, and they need a place to vent, and they need a place to complain, and they need a place to share stories, and then how to adapt and how to change and everything else. And this is what the manosphere and the red pill is good for. It's an original purpose. It's to come in, share experiences, open guys' eyes to the actual nature, the behaviors of women, generally speaking, and so then they can make better choices. They can make objective choices that are based more in reality about, right, who do they want to date, what are the red flags, the green flags, the women to avoid, the women to go for, and so on. So they can make a choice, a better choice of who they want to be with, or do they want to be single, and so on in the future. That's the great thing, and men need a place like that. And if you're going to clamp down on a place like that and put more and more restrictions on men's discussions on these topics in regards to women, well, guess what you're going to do? If you're just going to label every man who has a complaint about women as a misogynist and who's dangerous and as a psycho, go and look at the comments on my video on my first video on adolescence. Okay, and I raised the point about women's behavior towards unattractive men, which a lot of guys in this space know is the truth. And they go, just look at the comments from women. They're calling me psycho and dangerous and all that, just for pointing it out. So if you do that, what you do is you push men to the extremes. Now, someone like Tate, and I've said this, I'm no longer a fan of Tate. I used to be a fan of Tate. And then you dive into his case and everything else and his history. I'm not a fan of Tate anymore. I think he's done some horrible things to people and to women. I think he's a horrible person. I think he's guilty of many of the crimes. So I'm not a fan of his. Okay? But he was a symptom. He wasn't the cure. And he was a symptom because this discussion, the frustrations that men had were being ignored, and we're being labeled all the worst things under the sun. And so guys gravitate to the extreme in the end. They get pushed to the extreme. And if you're going to clamp down, and Tate is not the worst that could exist and that men could gravitate to, some of these men. And you clamp down on some of the discussions, because Tate makes a hell of a lot of great points, and he makes a lot of great points about masculinity and women as well and relationships. I worry about the clamp down on some of those discussions and the talk around this and some of the people and some of the content. It's going to make things even worse, which gives powers that be even more reason to clamp down on us and so on, until it gets, I don't know, to a real boiling point. And I've always, my channel is about men taking responsibility as well, of course, self-responsibility. I've always promoted respect towards women. I've always said to guys, you should never disrespect, you shouldn't be rude, you shouldn't take anything in an emotional way, you should definitely never ever be aggressive or violent to women or anything like that. I've pointed out the faults that men have. I pointed out the faults of the advice around dating and relationships. I've mentioned how, Chads, the top percentage of guys lay responsibility for the mess of the dating market and women's delusional beliefs around their standards and everything else. I've done all of that. But there is also no getting around the fact that a hell of a lot of blame lays at the feet of women here for the way the dating market is, for the way incels think, the way men have these abhorrent views on women and everything else, because of some of their behaviors and some of their standards and the way they act and everything else, their entitlement and yada yada. And we need a place, man. We need a place as guys we can discuss, we can call that out, we can come to solutions and proper conversations. You know, I feel like when we have these debates, sometimes it's like, where are the adults, man? Where are the adults? And especially with the women, right? It is frustrating. It is unbelievably frustrating. It's like they can't accept their faults. Not all of them, of course not, but right, the loudest of them. It's like there's no fault that lays with them. They have no blame at their feet. It's all on men. And that's simply just not the case. And like I said, if we can't have healthy discussions around this stuff and look at the bigger picture, and women cannot take and admit responsibility and take some accountability and humble themselves to a degree, things will only get worse. And the manosphere will become incredibly toxic again. It has been toxic. There has been messages that will lead to men treating women badly, having awful relationships, short-term relationships, create more degeneracy, more broken homes, contribute more to the depopulation crisis, and so on. Like I said, it is self-regulating. But a further clampdown, but for it to get to a really good place and a much more positive place, because most of the messaging inside there is positive, right? And here's the irony as well. So much of red pill manosphere content is men doing what women want. This is the thing as well that a lot of feminists and you normies and everything else don't understand. Okay, so women have higher standards now. We all know the reason why they have higher standards. Dating apps, yada, 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 whatnot. More access, so on and so on. Okay, so men are like, all right, what do I do? What do I need to do? Where do I raise my standards? And so much of where guys get that from, and good information and good advice, is red pill, is manosphere. It's about getting in shape, right? Taking responsibility, being more mature, more masculine, being a provider, maybe making more money, and so on. Now, some of it goes so ridiculous, like the money thing. A lot of the money, the talk around money in the manosphere is like, you got to be making 10K or you're not a real man, or 10K a month or you're not a real man. Like, that is just bollocks, right? There is so much bollocks in there. There is so much stuff that the red pill takes as a response to women and capitalism and just puts it on steroids, and it becomes a joke and it becomes ridiculous, and it puts and it continues to further ridiculous expectations on men. Just because very, very tiny few men are being able to do that, it's like, if you're not meeting those standards, right, you're also a loser. That's how other guys within the space are behaving and acting. They're almost like acting like these extreme women themselves. And all of that stuff is bollocks. It's nonsense. Call that stuff out. But a lot of it is so good. And a lot of guys that are mature, that are sensible, that are objective, they take what's good and they take the good stuff and they disregard the rubbish, right? And they make themselves better. They turn themselves into better men. They start understanding women better. They start understanding how to interact with women and flirt and get dates and get into relationships, and all of that is brilliant, man. But that is all going to be, and that's starting to come up again, and it's starting to change, and it's starting to evolve into that more positive space. But this clampdown and this indoctrination and this refusal to admit the positive aspects of the space, and that it's all toxic and it's all this and just using the worst of the worst and holding it up as this is what the manosphere is, all of that stuff will eventually, again, it will turn into this toxic mess, and men will get more extreme, and there'll be more hatred and vitriol and so on. And this really worries me. It really scares me. Let me check the timing. So just to round this up, for me, look, if you're a woman watching this and if you're a guy, we need to have fucking adult conversations. Stop fighting one another. Stop trying to win the argument. Stop having a debate. Have a conversation. It's not about dunking on the other person. It's not about winning. Maybe we can't come to a solution. Maybe this will never be fixed. Probably never will. But let's just not tear each other apart at the same time. If we just have to shake hands and go, you know what, fuck it. We don't see eye to eye. This ain't going to work. Fine. You go do you, I go do me. That'll probably be the end of us all. But can we not tear each other apart at the same time? Can we not at least be free? Can we not act civil and like adults in these debates and in our lives and not be at war? And that starts with bigger picture and everyone taking responsibility, because men are always being told to be the ones to take responsibility. They're the ones being thrown all the expectations. Women need that too. It is not toxic, it is not misogynistic to have expectations and have them try to admit faults themselves. We need to start there. And this is a discussion. I'll do many more videos on this. And I want you guys to evolve the discussion as well. Get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts, as always. I'm trying over here, man. I'm trying to, in my own small way, make it a more healthy environment. Right? And I'm just a guy. I have my biases too, and I have my faults and everything else. And some advice is going to work for some guys and it won't work for others, or they just won't agree, or someone. I'm trying my best. I know for a fact I could go to more of the extremes. My messaging could be based more on the extremes, and I would get more views and more subscribers and make more money. I know that. I don't want to do that. That's not what I want to do. And it's not what I will do. I want guys to, and I want men and women to come together and have great relationships and raise healthy children. That's ultimately what I want. But yeah, I'd also, if you are new here and you've enjoyed this and you come this far, man, I really appreciate it if you like and subscribe, comment, share this, get this out there, get this discussion out there as well, and yeah, join me for the next one.